All right, so essential tools. As an artist, it's gonna be kind of all of my essential tools and the utilities I use. I wanted this video to kind of be like a studio tour, but more of like a tour of the utilities and utensils and tools I use for all the projects, all the miscellaneous paraphernalia. So we're gonna talk about all the paints I use: oil paint, acrylic, watercolor, spray paint. We're gonna talk about the things I use to paint with those, the brushes, the whole gamut of tools and resources. I thought that would be a cool video. In turn, you'll see the studio and kind of the setups. But first, I previewed this on my Instagram story. Wow, look at this sexy spray paint rack. Also, we got a huge one over here, so we're gonna put those together and then we'll start the video. Boom. Boom. So that's all finished. Let's start with the first kind of topic of the 10. It's gonna be a loose 10. It's gonna be whatever I kind of think of during this video. Paint. We'll start with oil paint. And it would make sense to go to the painting area. So I got actually an oil painting. This is the video I uploaded last week. I'm filming this intermittently between projects and it's all set up, so let's talk about that. We got a lot to cover, ladies and germs, so we're gonna be pretty fast with this. This isn't a tutorial, it's just to display the tools and what's going on in the oil painting setup. So I paint on a glass palette that I spray painted gray for a nice middle tone. The oil paint I use is Gamblin. It's pretty cheaper paint, but I also use Williamsburg, which is nice paint, and Charmin, and you know they range differently from how much pigment and how much binders there are, whatever. Oil paint in general is pretty much made of just pigment and an oil, linseed oil or a safflower oil. So my mediums that I use, and this is very basic, this is like the minimum, is an odorless mineral spirit, which goes in here, which kind of cleans brushes. And then you got your medium, your linseed oil, which traditionally goes in these little metal tubes. And there's dozens of other mediums that you could use: fast drying, slow drying, glazing, whatever. But this is pretty basic and pretty much what I use every single painting. And the brushes, I have a bunch here, but there's two kind of different ones. There's natural bristle brush from like animals, like hog hair, and then there's synthetic, which kind of mimics the hog hair or the natural bristles. And then there's also synthetics that are really soft for different effects. But traditionally, the long handle is for oil painting. So that's the oil painting. That's pretty much, everything here I use for every painting. So that's pretty much it. Sorry if you wanted more information. We're moving on to the acrylic. Moving right along. So behind me, this is a big surface area kind of shelf where I keep a lot of mediums, different paint, tools, tape, brushes. We'll go over there, but acrylic paint, there's pretty much two: fluid acrylic, which is very watery, and then a heavier body acrylic, which is just a thicker paint, which is what people traditionally think about when they think about acrylics. I don't really use acrylic paint to paint per se anymore, like all the big canvases over there. I use it specifically for outlining stencil projects, so fine liner these brushes to outline outline stuff, and these are short handle. And so we could bring this over here. Let's get a light as well. So yeah, we got brushes, big thick brushes, thinner brushes for acrylic paint. We got a bunch of like random mixing spoons, different tools, a bunch of more acrylic paint, miscellaneous stuff, buckets. This is just like a utility space. Little palettes to mix acrylic paint. Also, my watercolor setup is right here, and I have a few different types of watercolor. This is kind of the to-go kit, which is easily, it's dirty, but that's what it is to go other places. And then we also got like tubes of watercolor. We also got some gouache in here, which is like watercolor and acrylic combined. So these are all different mediums. I don't use watercolor or gouache that much, although I love it and it's very fun. And they got different kind of properties to them as well. So a lot of paints, painting. As a fine artist, you use paint to paint. That's the main thing. But let's talk about some other stuff real quick, like what you paint on and draw on, like paper and canvas. Staying over here, we got these big rolls of canvas. And there's two different types that I have. These are both the same. This is cotton duck, and then in that tube is a linen, and the difference is pretty different, but it's also, it's hard to tell if you're a beginner or don't know much about it. Cotton is generally cheaper. You can get it primed, unprimed. For example, this white stuff is primed. with gesso. This is a tanner color. This is unprimed. Linen is more expensive for a few reasons, but mostly people think it's just higher quality and more archival, and archival meaning it lasts longer. I use linen to oil paint, like the painting over there. It's a loose leaf piece of linen. I've cut it out a lot. For the stencil projects and other things, I'll cut this stuff out and wrap it. You know, you gotta figure it out for yourself. I've used a bunch over time, but when I was starting out, I really didn't know the difference, and I bought pre-wrapped canvases, and I have a bunch over here. These are all pre-wrapped. So these are all pre-wrapped canvases, obviously right here. A lot of them are still in the wrapper. This is actually a linen. You can tell with the more tan background. And this is a really high quality canvas, and I grounded it with oil paint because this is gonna be an oil painting on top of it. But you know, these are very cheap canvases. They're still gallery wrapped, which means they're nice in the back. And these are great canvases. I get these at Michael's, and Michael's has the craziest sales. Buy one, you get two free. So that's why there's so many here. I'm gonna do a big project with all of these. But I do, when I can, like to stretch my own. You know, you've seen a bunch of videos, if you haven't, check them out, of me wrapping a bunch of my own canvases. And I like to do that when I can because it's more custom, it's more fun. You're really building the material that you're then gonna paint on. So I think that's cool. But these are just, you know, generic cotton canvases. Generally, when you buy them from the store, the cheaper ones are cotton. More expensive ones, like this, linen. But then there's also wood board, which I love to paint on because it's a very solid surface. This is wood board and this is acrylic paint. And I buy these wood panels with it's just exposed wood, and you do a couple layers of gesso, which is like a primer, a ground, and I prime it, sand it a few times, and then I paint on it. I did the same thing for this. This is another wood panel, a different style, different shape, but this is oil paint. You prepare the surface, sand it down, get it nice. I actually do a couple washes of oil for oil paintings over the gesso to get it ready, and then you're good to paint. So pretty much you could paint on anything. You know, I could prime this wood. You could do masonite. People prime illustration board. As long as you have some surface preparation like this to really adhere when the paint comes, you could paint on really anything. Jumping around real quick, we gotta keep moving. We're gonna talk about spray paint next. A lot to say about that, but we gotta talk about the sponsor of today's video. Skillshare has been a recurring sponsor for this channel, and it's great because it's something applicable I can actually talk about to the subscribers and people who watch my videos. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of different classes in creative endeavors like entrepreneur skills, animation, fine arts, and they are taught by the leading professionals in those disciplines. So whether you're trying to get into film or photography or start a career or even just a hobby, there's classes built for every type of person and all your needs, and their premium membership gives you unlimited access to thousands of these different classes. And a class I would recommend for kind of what we're talking about in the studio, what I'm into, is techniques for pencil portraits, more fine artsy sort of video for portraiture. Skillshare is so epic, they're sponsoring me. You know, their classes are so affordable for less than $10 a month compared to in-person classes in all of these disciplines, so you really can't lose. I've used them before. Their whole platform is extremely awesome. You know, the first 1,000 people who click the link in the description get 2 free months of Skillshare. It's a great opportunity if you're interested in any of these disciplines or want to further your understanding in the creative endeavors. I wouldn't take that opportunity for granted. Thanks again, Skillshare, for sponsoring the video. Let's talk about some spray paint. So spray paint, we're gonna talk about this rack. I've used spray paint for almost over 10 years now. It's kind of like the inception, graffiti, murals. I love it. They're an invaluable resource. Montana Gold, Montana Black, Molotow, Iron Lac, the different valve pressures, low and high, the pigment, you know, how much control. It's just extremely high quality. They're an invaluable resource. I use them almost every project, not for oil painting, but you know, on canvases. I use them for the backgrounds a lot, the stencil projects. All the murals in my studio have spray paint. I use a little amounts for different stencil projects, so I try to keep every color. This whole system right here, this rack that I got, sadly, my art store that is like a mile away went out of business, and you know, I went there like every other day, and they're super nice. They gave me the leftover racks because they were going out of business. I got this single cell and I got the double cell in the other room. They're super high quality metal. The doors come off. Gorgeous. You know, this is a storage kind of solution, not an organization, because if I want to go back and get a color, I obviously have to take them out. So it's just kind of storage. And so all of this stuff, this is all latex exterior paint. It's good to have this stuff, a lot of whites and blacks, but also you can see red, yellow, primary colors. I tend to only get those colors, blue, red, yellow, because you can mix almost any color. It's good to have a lot of paint, and I've acquired a lot of these materials in general. Public service announcement. A lot of these materials and things I've acquired over years of doing murals and commissions and, you know, doing artwork. So this isn't just stuff I got in a couple months. You know, this is kind of years of supplies. Drop cloths right here. This is kind of the junk drawer of crazy stuff. This is paint thinner for latex paint. We got more drop cloths. We got spare rollers, a bunch of crap. And we also got dozens of buckets. I love buckets. They're so useful for just mixing, holding paint, water. So this is kind of like the mural supplies. These are like the paint rollers. Just a bunch of crap, but it's all useful. And this rack has really saved, I think, about 4 square feet. 4 square feet of room, which is kind of a lot. Moving on, I don't know what's next. Okay, let's talk about paper. So for drawing and stuff, like sketching, you know, I got all these sketchbooks. You've seen the sketchbook tours. These are just generic, you know, binded sketches. But for other drawings, and especially drawings like figure drawing practice, and all of this stuff, this is all newsprint. And what newsprint is kind of like a cheaper material. It's like newspaper. It's very thin. It's good for sketching and not wasting like really high quality paper. High quality paper is more of this stuff. Toned gray. Strathmore is good quality paper. And so yeah, I do drawings in here a lot. Also like thicker multimedia paper, which is like a heavier weight, you know, sketching practice. I do a couple sketchbook videos on this stuff. But and I guess from paper that kind of leads us to like sketching materials. This is way more in-depth than I thought, but we're just gonna keep it rolling. So right here, this is my main kind of sketching little case that I go. It travels, it zips up. We got pens, markers, charcoal, pencil. Usually I have an eraser, needed eraser, and a sharpener in here. But you know, this is like just pencil stuff that I've acquired from different schools. And when I was painting, this is all charcoal, vine charcoal in here. This is like all ink pens, other random pencils and paraphernalia. And moving forward to kind of like my favorite part and what I like to talk about is the studio itself and the efficiency and kind of feng shui of where things are. I think that's a big deal. And so the studio, especially this side, that side I don't work in as much. This is more of the work side. It's a giant rectangle. And on the perimeter of this whole rectangle is all the different workspaces and kind of zones. And so that's the perimeter of the whole space. In the center is just a big open space to have open, and then also this center island, which is just a great surface area for efficient things to grab in the center. So that's kind of the feng shui and flow, and it's worked for me. It's efficient. It's been 4 years I've been in here and kind of nailed down that flow. In the center here, we got, I'm sorry the windows are blown out. That's so annoying, but these are quick grab tools. Screwdriver, paint scraper, scissors, needle nose pliers that's unbelievably useful in so many weird situations. More ruler stuff. Big ruler down here. We got a couple yardsticks. We got a nailed in yardstick right there. And then these are also just template 90-degree angled squares. So a bunch of randomness, but quick grab at the center, very efficient. I use those tools every day. That's why they're in the center. Moving on to the next room, you know, the big portal. Usually I have these drapes closed because it helps keep the heat in that side. It's getting warmer though. So this side is like the photo studio, which I recently put in. Not really recently anymore, but it's the newest addition to the studio. And a lot of this space is storage, but this is kind of like the work zone. A lot of other tools that I don't use every day, but I love to build stuff. So I have quite a few tools, hammers. This is like screws, different bits, you know, the junk drawer of kind of power tools and essentials for that. Like I said, again, I've been here for 4 years, and all of this stuff I've acquired and gotten from different projects. And, you know, I buy stuff when I need it. I love to build. I have quite a big stockpile of different woods. And, you know, power tools, these are super basic power tools, a jigsaw, angle grinder, a drill. Those are simple, but you could really do a lot with those. And I have built, you know, I built the photo studio, I built that island, I do maintenance, I build frames for canvases, I built this like James Gurney portable easel, whatever. I love to build stuff, so I have the tools, and this is where I can get messy. I got the power vac under there. and a bunch of other, you know, essentials like sandpaper is essential, other crap, just a lot of crap. But I thought I'd show you because those things are awesome, and I love to use tools. Here's the other rack, by the way. What a gorgeous puppy. It's so funny. I originally thought this video was gonna be super organized, kind of delineating the different materials and zones of kind of all the stuff, but it's turned into just me showing you anything I think in the moment when I think about it. Every nook and cranny. But you know, when I watch other artists, my favorite artists do studio tours and talk about tools and materials, I actually can't get enough. So I guess the fanboy within me just feels obligated to show you kind of every inch. This is like speakers holding stuff, but this is also where I have all my GoPro stuff, and we could talk about filming because that's clearly an important thing for me as a videographer and, you know, a content creator, not just a fine artist sharing my stuff. We got chargers, all the GoPro mounts. GoPros are epic if you want to get into recording yourself or vlogging. I think a GoPro is your best bet because it could do it all. Really good time lapses, wide angle, good quality. My camera bag. I shoot with a GH5, a Panasonic GH5. I used the GH4 to start out after I got into videography. I still use this for time lapses. It's a great tool. So that actually just reminds me of lighting. I have these, you know, big studio lights. I mean, there's lamps, but they're not that good. These lights have really increased the quality of my videos, I think, and you wouldn't think so if you don't really do video stuff, but good lighting is incredibly important. That's honestly why I'm standing by the window so much, because it's such a great amount of soft light. It lights perfectly. I'm really lucky to have a studio with a lot of natural light. It would be way harder to get light in because these lights up here kind of suck. But so that's something that's super important. I got 2 of those lights, and they're pretty inexpensive actually, but they do a great job. And I guess to sort of continue the digital talking about, I have an iPad that I do most of my digital drawing on. This is the iPad 2 12-inch, and I use the app Procreate. It's like the best drawing app besides Photoshop, and I use Premiere Pro to edit. That's what I use. I don't use Final Cut. I use Premiere. I use all the Premiere or the Adobe suites, and that's pretty much it. I think this is gonna be a long video. I don't know, and just I wanted to reiterate all these things. You know, it is a lot. I'm super lucky to be in a studio in the situation. It really is my dream, and it's taken me, you know, over 4 years to be where I am. And you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if you want to learn about how I built the studio, kind of the story behind it, there's a couple videos that I'll link. I've documented everything from the beginning of building the studio and like my journey as a young artist transitioning to a full-time artist, everything on the walls. There's a video on everything. So you just gotta dive deep in the channel. If you're new, you know, subscribe because we do a bunch of epic projects, and I love to share, you know, my experience as an artist and the different projects, and that's what we're doing. We're gonna sign off there. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to answer about any things. Again, this wasn't really a tutorial about how to use the materials. It was just the materials I have, the things I use, the flow. That's all I got. Let me know what you think. Subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and we're gonna get weird and crazy. Coming soon. See ya.